I never imagined a housekeeper could change my life. Passing every math test felt impossible. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air was thick with dread as I stared at the pile of books on my desk, each one a mountain I couldn't hope to climb. My heart raced. I felt the weight in my chest, a tightness that wouldn't go away. I glanced at the clock. Time slipped away like sand through my fingers. I knew I was behind, and with each passing moment, the fear grew bigger. I couldn't let my mom down again. She had sacrificed everything for me. Her tired eyes haunted my thoughts, begging me not to ruin my future. Then came Maria. Thin, elderly, her hands trembled as she dusted the shelves of our home. She was just a housekeeper, right? But there was something unusual about her, something intriguing. The way she moved as if she held a secret. I often caught her staring at me, her eyes sharp. It sent chills down my spine, but also a spark of curiosity. "Why do you look so worried, darling?" she asked one day. Her voice was soft, yet it sliced through the silence. I shrugged, unable to let my pain spill out. I liked to think I was strong. But Maria wasn't just any housekeeper, she seemed to see through me. Weeks went by, each math test looming like a storm. Every night, I stayed up late, desperately trying to make sense of numbers that danced on the page before me. My grades slipped, and my mom's hopes dwindled. Then one evening, Maria surprised me. "I can help," she said, sitting down at the table while I shoved papers away in frustration. "Let me teach you." Her eyes sparkled with an intensity one hadn't noticed before. Hesitant at first, I eventually nodded. From that night on, our sessions began. She would lean closer, her breath warm as she explained fractions and formulas. But there was something odd. Sometimes, when she explained a hard concept, she would use strange metaphors comparing math to gardening or weaving tapestries. "Numbers, like threads, hold our lives together," she'd say, her voice musical and soothing. It made me forget my panic momentarily, yet, there were whispers in the hallways at school about her. Kids pointed and giggled, spreading rumors. They said she was a witch, that her knowledge came from dark places. My stomach twisted with fear. Could it be true? The more I learned, the more questions rose. And the stakes were higher than a vermy future depended on passing this next test. But those whispers echoed in my mind like a sinister melody. I wanted to confront her about it. I wanted to demand the truth. But every time she smiled at me, I felt a warmth, a connection that filled spaces in my soul I didn't know were empty. As the day of the big test arrived, I sat at my desk, paper clenched in my fist. My heart thundered. Could I trust her? Was she really helping me or pulling me into something darker? The pencil hovered above the blank sheet, waiting for an answer. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The echo of the clock in the silent room beat like a drum against my chest. I could feel the pressure mounting, my fingers quivering, the pencil still poised above the paper. The whispers of doubt clawed at my mind. What if Maria wasn't who she said she was? Every lesson, every comforting word, felt suddenly tainted by the shadows lurking in the corners of my thoughts. But another part of me, the part that felt seen for the first time, pushed back against the darkness. Then, just as quickly as the uncertainty flooded in, a familiar warmth began to bloom in my chest. I remembered the late nights spent with Maria, her gentle encouragement cutting through my insecurity, each mathematical breakthrough a spark of light in my otherwise dim existence. But did I truly believe in her intentions? Taking a deep breath, I dropped the pencil onto the desk. The paper, blank and daunting, mocked me. My knuckles turned white against the wood as uncertainty carved its way deeper into my gut. "This is for my mom," I whispered to myself, but the words felt hollow. Suddenly, a soft knock at my door broke my spiral of doubt. It was Maria, her frail figure casting a small shadow against the early evening sun. "Are you ready?" The question hung in the air, coaxing me out of my clutches of despair. Her gaze was penetrating yet tender, a dichotomy that made my heart race. "I'm not sure," I confessed, leaning back in my chair. "What if I fail?" "You won't," she replied, her voice laced with a quiet conviction. She stepped inside and placed a comforting hand on my shoulder, a warming presence that grounded me just as much as it stirred my apprehension. "Remember what I taught you. Math isn't just about numbers, it's about the connections we make. You can do this." Her words felt like a fragile thread pulling me toward courage. But as I caught her eye, something flickered within her gaze that gave me pause, the briefest flicker of something darker, something I couldn't quite grasp. Doubt wormed its way back, venomous and persistent. Before I could second-guess myself, I shoved my concerns aside. My future was worth the risk. I inhaled sharply and gripped the pencil again, the trembling subsiding as I poured my heart onto the blank sheet. Question after question began to unfurl beneath my hand, pieces of me emerging through the equations. Yet, as the minutes slipped away, each answer felt like a jittering illusion. What if they were wrong? What if I was wrong? The testing room felt stifling, walls closing in with every tick of the clock. My heart raced as I skimmed the final answers. Did I really understand? Did I genuinely trust Mariah's teachings? I fought against the storm brewing inside as the teacher called time. As the paper was collected, I slumped back in my chair, uncertainty swirling wildly in the pit of my stomach. The moment felt agonizingly drawn out as I returned to the quiet of my bedroom. Maria had left, perhaps sensing my need for solace, and I was left alone with my swirling thoughts. But later that evening, an unexpected text from my mom lit up my phone screen, pulling me momentarily back into reality. "Hey, sweetheart. I'm in town. I'll be home soon." My heart soared at the thought of seeing her after so long, yet a pang of dread hit as I realized I had yet to tell her about my struggles, about Maria. Just then, I heard a soft sound coming from the living room, a shuffling, a whisper. I crept toward the doorway, curiosity guiding my steps. As I peered around the corner, I saw Maria in conversation with my mom, her gestures animated, but I couldn't catch the words. "There's something I need to tell you," Maria continued, her voice trembling but resolute. My breath caught in my throat, electrified by the strange tension in the air. My stomach twisted into knots as the tension mounted. I felt I was intruding on something monumental, something that could change everything I thought I understood. That I wrestled with instinct, longing to retreat and shield myself from whatever revelation was about to unfold. But a push of courage surged through me. Had to know. "May I join you?" I stepped into the room, my heart pounding in time with the apprehensive silence that enveloped us. Mariah's eyes flicked to mine, a fleeting blend of surprise and perhaps fear, and I felt the weight of an unspoken truth, one that was about to surface and shatter the fragile bond we had built. Before either could respond, my mom's face shifted from shock to something unreadable. "You've met Maria?" There it was, a spark ignited, a clash of implications waiting to explode. As the shadows deepened around us, I braced myself for revelations I wasn't ready for, unsure if the foundation of my fragile world was about to be fortified or dismantled entirely. The atmosphere in the room thickened as my question hung in the air, the weight of it tangible and suffocating. Maria looked at me as if searching for the right words, a flicker of something between her and my mother telling a story that I was suddenly desperate to hear. My heart raced while the seconds stretched on like hours, anticipation and fear sparking a wildfire of emotions within me. Yeah. I felt my voice crack. I met her through tutoring. I had thought mentioning math would be enough to break through the tension, revealing the innocuous bonding experience I had with Maria. But my mother's expression turned sharp, her features hardened by a torrent of concern I hadn't witnessed in a while. "Tutoring," Maria echoed, and though her tone was steady, I could see the tension pulling at the corners of her mouth, a plea hidden within her steady gaze. "Yes," I said, moving toward the small table where they sat. "She's helped me a lot." I couldn't shake the feeling that I was caught between two worlds, my mother's cautious demeanor and the warmth I felt from Maria, but that's not what I wanted to discuss, Maria interjected gently. "It's more complicated than that." "Complicated how?" I glanced from Maria to my mother, seeking clarity but finding only the shadows of secrets lingering in their eyes. The soft glow from the lamp cast elongated silhouettes across the room, amplifying the growing tension. I felt like a child again, pushed to the sidelines while important adult conversations played out. "The truth is," Maria continued, her voice low and steady, "I came into your life during a time of struggle, and now I feel there's something you should know about my past, about why I'm here." And why? Mother shifted uncomfortably, the air growing denser, as if the unspoken reality hovering above us could crush the very walls of our home. "Now is not the time for that," my mother insisted, her words a warning soaked with fear. "You can't know, this is crucial," Maria said, cutting her off. "If I am to continue helping this child, helping? Is that all you think you're doing?" My mother's voice rose, an edge of panic piercing through her eyes. I had never seen her this animated, her worry morphing into something I couldn't understand. "Please," I pleaded, desperate to ease the churning storm that felt like it might engulf us completely. "Whatever it is, just tell me." The room fell silent, the air thick with unspoken truths. Maria took a deep breath, her determination shimmering beneath a layer of vulnerability. "I'm more than just a housekeeper," she confessed, her voice trembling. "I'm also looking for a second chance." "Second chances?" My mother's words dripped with skepticism, but even through her distrust, I felt echoes of empathy. "Maria," I whispered, stepping closer, the impending heartache a palpable barrier between us. "What do you mean?" Maria's eyes bore into mine, drawing me in like a lighthouse in the fog. "I am trying to escape a past I thought I left behind, a past that may affect you if you don't know." The enormity of her words wrapped around us like the thickest fog, leaving me reeling. 1,000 questions bubbled inside me, but the look in Maria's eyes stilled my tongue. There was fear there, but also a glimmer of hope, and for the first time, I felt the shadows receding just slightly. My mother was quiet now, watching, processing. I could see her resolve crumbling under the weight of Maria's honesty. "What kind of past?" "You know you have no obligation to share," she said, her voice stripped of its sternness, but Maria shook her head vigorously. "No, I do. You both deserve to know." Then she paused, as if gathering herself for something monumental. "I once had a family, and they taught me every lesson I want to impart to you. They expected so much from me. But when things fell apart, when I failed them, I became lost." It felt like the world around us faded, the reality of her words crashing over me in waves. The security of my own struggles felt so small, dwarfed by the revelation of someone who had weathered storms I couldn't fathom. "Maria," I said, my voice barely a whisper now, "you're still here." She nodded slowly, and her gaze softened. "Because of people like you, who remind me that there's still a chance to make something beautiful out of despair." Suddenly, the tension in the room felt fragile, as though the slightest breeze could shatter the delicate thread weaving us together. Every heartbeat echoed loudly in my chest. "But how does that connect? I don't understand, and I am afraid that part of my past might come knocking again." Her revelation hung in the air like the cold bite of winter. "And it could threaten everything you have, the math, the hope, the light. I don't want that for you." I glanced at my mother, who seemed lost in her own thoughts, wrestling with the implications. "What does this all mean?" I couldn't escape the anger bubbling within, spurred by the sense of abandonment that came with not knowing. Before Maria could answer, a loud crash echoed from the front door, followed by muffled voices. My heart sank as dread settled in the pit of my stomach, and I shared a glance with my mother, both of us equally petrified by the abrupt intrusion. At that moment, realization struck both of us: Argentina was coming, the shadows of her past were already intruding upon our fragile sanctuary. "Mom, Maria, what do we do?" My voice trembled on the precipice of panic. Maria took a step closer, determination igniting in her eyes. "Trust me, I'll protect you." No one has to know, but I interrupted her, confusion and fear twisting within me. What about your past, Maria? Are you really ready to face them? With my life at stake? It was a selfish question, one that dripped with the insecurity that had tormented me since we started this journey. Her response was swallowed in the chaos that erupted outside the door. Glaring at one another, my mother and I both knew there were no more secrets to hold. The walls of our lives were rapidly closing in, revealing that the very ties that had begun to build could unravel before we even had a chance to breathe. As the thundering footsteps approached, I grasped onto that flicker of hope Maria had ignited within me. Whatever happened next, I would not face it alone. The tension spiraled as the door swung open, and the bitter chill from outside spilled into the room, carrying with it the specter of dread. A figure stood silhouetted against the harsh light of the hallway, blocking our escape, a stark reminder that chaos had never felt so imminent. Maria, I breathed out, seeking reassurance in her determined gaze, but the sudden dread seeped into her confidence, anchoring it to fear. Stay behind me, she whispered, her voice steady but the tremor in her hands betraying her. The figure at the door stepped forward, revealed by the flickering light. It was a man, tall and broad, with a face marred by rough angles and shadows of a troubled past. My heart raced, a pulse pounding both in my ears and the back of my throat as I stood frozen between Maria and the oncoming storm, looking for someone. His voice was gravelly, and the words rolled out like thunder, a foreboding tremor that set the air crackling. Get out, my mother spoke, her voice unwavering despite the fear that curled in her stomach. You have no right to be here, right? The man laughed, a harsh sound that echoed around us, chilling me further. You think you can just run away from what you owe? You think this girl's power to turn a blind eye will keep you safe? I shot a glance at Maria, confusion etching deep lines on my forehead. What does he mean? Maria's expression softened for an instant, a mixture of anger and sorrow painting her features. You must leave. Please, she urged, her tone becoming more desperate. You don't understand the danger he represents. You've brought this on yourself, Maria, the man spat, stepping closer as I felt my instincts shout for us to retreat. Running off with a kid while leaving everything behind. You think you can erase the past? Before Maria could respond, my mother raised her chin defiantly, blocking me from the looming threat. You don't get to intimidate us. You don't own her. The man's eyes darted between the three of us like a predator sizing up its prey. Oh, but you're mistaken. She's a part of my past, whether she likes it or not. And they'll make sure it catches up with her. A wave of icy fear surged through me at his words, a stark reality that whatever turmoil lay within Maria's past was more dangerous than just difficult conversations. Who are you? I asked, drawing closer to Maria, feeling the warmth she projected, as if I could borrow strength from her very presence. That I am just a reminder, he sneered. A reminder of the choices she made and the consequences that come with them. Maria stepped forward, her defiance igniting like a flame. I made those choices to survive. I thought I left you behind. Survive? He sneered again, the sound sharper than any knife. You call this survival? Look at them, Maria. Look at the child you've put at risk. Whatever you think you've come to do, you are wrong, Maria said, placing herself firmly in front of my mother and me. You can't scare me anymore. For a heartbeat, I admired her bravery until I caught the flicker of fear in her eyes, a spark that shattered my delusion of safety. We were all caught in the crossfire, and all my dreams of passing math tests and video calls with Maria now felt as fragile as the flickering light around us. Such bravery, the man said mockingly. But courage can't change what's already been written. Enough. My mother's voice cut through the tension, strong despite the tremble of urgency beneath her facade. You may think you're here to intimidate us, but we won't let you harm us. Leave, now. The man hesitated, a glimmer of doubt crossing his face, but I could sense the venomous rage bubbling beneath his surface, merely restrained. It was as though darkness had seeped into every crevice of his soul and now threatened to unearth itself. Just then, the room shook with a sound that shattered our standoff, the unmistakable crack of glass. A silent scream passed through the air like a whisper of betrayal, my heart clenching as I turned to see the window behind my mother fragmented, shards of reality raining down like forgotten dreams. Mom! I shouted, panic surging to the surface. In that moment, Maria lunged forward, instinctively drawing me behind her. "You have to go," she cried, her voice laced with urgency. "They'll take you from me if you don't leave now." The threat wasn't just present, it was alive, pressing down on us like a storm, and the heart I had clutched to foster hope faltered in the face of impending destruction. The man smirked, stepping toward the now open space where the jagged edges of glass glittered with unspoken danger. "You can't hide from your past, Maria. It will always find you." I felt my foundations start to crumble. "What do we do, Maria? Please," I begged, fear clawing at my throat. Her eyes searched mine desperately, yet beneath her brave facade lay an uncertainty that terrified me more than the man's threat. "Trust me," she said softly, the weight of her promise hanging in the air between us, but trusting was a gift I felt slipping away as the man advanced, dark intentions emanating from him like a suffocating fog, and I realized that even the smallest flicker of hope began to dim in the face of such shadows. As he stepped closer, a sudden crash hit behind him, a loud bang that jolted the very air around us, piercing through the tension with an unexpected force. I turned just in time to see another figure rushing through the doorway, cloaked in urgency and purpose. My heart raced as recognition dawned, less like a ghost from the past and more like a guardian angel descended into the chaos. "Step away from them." This new voice rang out, and with it, my world flipped back onto its axis just as the sharp shards of glass glistened menacingly in the half-light, suspending all certainty in a moment pregnant with tension. I grasped onto that spark of hope now ignited anew, but lingering in the back of my mind was the chilling truth. Darkness came hand in hand with truth, and whatever storm was brewing outside our door had only just begun to unveil itself. The figure that emerged through the doorway was a woman, tall and unyielding, with an air of desperation that mirrored our own. Her eyes glowed with a fierce intensity, fueled by something deeper than just courage. She was a life raft in the storm, and I stumbled toward her instinctively. "Get behind me," she commanded, her voice slicing through the chaos, pulling us into the safety of her presence. The man halted in his advance, his expression shifting from derision to surprise, and for a fleeting moment, I could see the fear lurking behind his bravado. "Who are you?" he snapped, as the tension thickened, like a heavy fog set to suffocate us all. "I'm someone who won't let you hurt them," she stated resolutely, her gaze unwavering. I blinked, trying to recollect where I had seen her before. Suddenly, it clicked. She was the housekeeper from my mother's old office, the one who sometimes spoke softly to me in the hallway, her voice a gentle melody among the noise of the corporate world. Her presence ignited a warmth in my chest, an unexpected but desperately needed ally. "You need to leave now," she added, her tone brokering no argument. The man sneered, attempting to reassert his dominance. "You think you can protect them? You have no idea what you're getting involved in." Maria moved closer to me, her hand squeezing mine, grounding me amidst the escalating tension. "We can't let him win," she whispered urgently, but the fear in her eyes betrayed her strong front. I clenched her hand tighter, as if our joint grip could shield us from the reality of the threat before us. "Enough of this." The man growled, and I could sense his patience waning like the last flickering ember of a dying fire. Tendrils of anger crept into his voice, punctuated by desperation. "Maria, it doesn't have to end like this. You can still come back. Let me take you home." Mariah's voice wavered, filled with incredulity, as if the very idea of going back was a betrayal to everything she had fought for. "This is not my home. I escaped that nightmare for a reason," but uncertainty danced in my stomach as the man took a step forward, shadows fanning out from him like a dark halo, closing in on the fragile space we occupied. "You think you've escaped? Life doesn't work like that. What's done in the past comes back, Maria. You're foolish to believe otherwise." It was then I noticed the housekeeper's eyes narrowing as she assessed the man, her jaw clenched in determination. "You'll not drag her back into the darkness she fought so hard to flee," she declared, and with that, she turned towards us. "We need a plan. You need to focus on getting out of here." Just as her words soaked into me, a strange calm washed over the room, anchoring my swirling thoughts. In that instant, I recognized that the fortress we built around ourselves was not just manifesting fear, but also a web of connection. I looked at Maria, the housekeeper, and my mother, something fragile yet powerful tempered by the storm threatening to dissolve it. The man took another step closer, the hunched shadow of his past clawing at my own breath. You really think you can run? He seethed, but the challenge sparked something in me, igniting that flicker of hope again. We want back down, Maria said, her voice stronger now, infused with a newfound resolve that sliced through the tension. Suddenly, the man lunged at us, but the housekeeper intervened, springing forward with an unexpected grace. She pushed us back as she held her own against his intimidating presence. In that fraction of a second, I witnessed a fierce battle of light against darkness, an ethereal struggle cloaked in the urgency of survival. Now, the housekeeper shouted, looking back at us. Go through the kitchen. It's the quickest way out. Panic surged anew, but Mariah's determination wrapped around me like a lifeline. Let's go, she urged, pulling me backward, toward the kitchen entryway. I glanced back, a wild rush of emotions battling for dominance as the housekeeper fought valiantly against the man, their silhouettes casting long shadows against the walls. Don't stop, Maria cried out. Again, her voice breaking into my frantic thoughts. I scampered towards the kitchen, adrenaline propelling me forward as we burst through the swinging doors, the sounds of chaos replaced by our pounding footsteps, echoes of uncertainty trailing behind us. That I and the kitchen. I turned just long enough to catch a glimpse of the housekeeper being thrown against the wall, the impact reverberating in my bones. No, I cried, my heart twisting at the sight. Keep moving, Maria urged, fear threading through her words. That I nodded, forcing myself to break from the image of old connections tangled in my mind. We dashed through the narrow corridor, my breath quickening with each step, nearness to freedom tempered by the shadows that loomed, but the warmth of hope ebbed slightly as realization set in. His was not over, and behind us, the world was unraveling, the man's presence looming like a specter of despair that refused to let go. And no matter how far you run, the truth will find you both, he called after us as our feet raced across the linoleum floor, and I felt a horrible weight settle within me. The truth felt like a storm brewing, an inevitability that mirrored the relentless wind thrashing against the house. As we reached the back exit, I hesitated. Behind us, the housekeeper lay still against the wall, and I couldn't help but wonder whether we were destined to repeat history, the fragile thread of hope echoing against the cacophony of past failures. Trust her, Maria whispered, sensing my conflict. She's fighting for us. That I turned toward the door, heart racing as I pushed it open, the chill of the outside world washing over me like a wave, fresh, but foreboding. Before crossing the threshold, I glanced back one last time, wishing I could carry the housekeeper's courage with me. The night stretched out before us, dark, formidable, one thought echoing as a final whisper: what awaited beyond the doors of safety? The cool night air hit my face like a slap, awakening me from the fog of fear that had clouded my thoughts. I stepped outside into an uncertain world shrouded in darkness, the echo of the kitchen door swinging shut behind us resounding like the finality of a vanishing hope. I turned to Maria, the weight of our frantic escape tiring my limbs, and saw a mixture of relief and terror reflected in her eyes. What do we do now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The shadows of the house loomed behind us, a reminder of what we were leaving behind. Maria took a deep breath, her gaze scanning the street as if searching for an answer among the flickering streetlights. We need to find somewhere safe, she answered, her voice steady but edged with apprehension. But we can't just run blindly. We have to think. That we moved down the street, the sound of our footsteps muffled against the asphalt. My heart raced with each step, a frantic drum pulling me deeper into the unknown, into the heart of a night that felt alive with threats lurking just outside our view. As we rounded a corner, a flicker of light caught my eye. An old diner stood, a beacon in the dark, its neon sign humming and sputtering as if fighting against the encroaching night. What about there? I suggested, nodding toward the diner which appeared to offer warmth and a chance to regroup. Maria hesitated, then nodded. It's better than being out in the open. Let's check it out. We approached cautiously, the comforting scent of fried food and stale coffee wafting invitingly through the door as we stepped inside. The soft glow from the fluorescent lights illuminated the few late-night patrons scattered throughout the booths. A couple of truckers hunched over plates of pancakes, while a solitary figure in a worn-out jacket sipped coffee, lost in thought. It felt almost surreal, a bubble of normalcy in a world turned upside down. That we took a booth in the far corner, and Maria slid into the seat, visibly shaken but putting on a brave face. "We're safe here for now," she murmured, though the tension in her shoulders revealed the fragility of that statement. That I leaned back, allowing the heaviness of reality to settle. We were both on shaky ground, still haunted by the man's words echoing in my mind. The truth he spoke felt like a ghost, waiting for the right moment to pounce. "What do you think he meant?" I asked, my voice trembling. "About truth coming for us," Maria's brow furrowed as she took a sip of water from a chipped glass. "I don't know. Maybe he thinks we can't escape our past." A shadow flitted across her face, and for a moment, I could see the wall shed built around her heart, cracking at the edges. "What did you escape from, Maria?" The question slipped out before I could stop myself, and I saw her stiffen, the flicker of vulnerability replaced by a defensive resolve. Things I don't want to talk about," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. A vulnerability hung in the air between us, an invitation to share burdens but steeped in hesitation, and I respected her boundary. Just then, the door swung open, and the bell rang like a warning signal. A new man stepped inside, his presence commanding and intimidating, instantly shifting the atmosphere in the diner. I could feel my heart quicken as I whispered to Maria, "Do you think it's him?" She turned, eyes wide, and I saw a flicker of recognition flash across her face before her expression hardened. "We need to go now." We scrambled from the booth, our hearts racing as we slipped sideways, trying to blend into the shadows of the diner. "Stay low," Maria urged, guiding me toward the rear exit while the man surveyed the diner, unfazed by the exits and entrances he was supposed to guard. That I could feel the urgency swelling, the walls closing in around us as Mariah's grip tightened on my arm. The sound of his voice, low and commanding, drifted through the air, sending chills down my spine. "I know you're in here. There's nowhere to hide." The urgency of the moment rattled through me, and I feared that any second lost could be our last. We needed to escape, but the fear was mingled with a burning curiosity about why he was here and how tangled our lives had become. Just as we reached the exit, Maria spotted the eyes of the driver behind the counter, a man seemingly oblivious to the chaos unfolding. "We can't let him see us," she muttered, panic lacing her voice. "Wait, what if he could?" Suddenly, the man stepped toward us, blocking our only chance at freedom. "There you are. I knew you'd run here. You can't evade me." In that moment, faced with the ultimatum of our revealed location, a flicker of hope ignited within me. "We need to be brave," I whispered firmly to Maria. "Together. If we go out there, it'll be okay." And just as I stepped forward to confront the fear that threatened to consume us, the single ding of the diner's bell echoed behind us, a note of tension as the door swung closed behind the man, cutting out all light and hope. A terrifying realization washed over me, binding the weight of our predicament. He knew we were here, and escape was growing precariously thin. The truth might be waiting just outside the walls of the din, a truth that threatened to unravel everything we had tried so hard to hold together. The neon flicker of the diner's sign painted uneasy shadows on the tile floor, and I could feel the pulse of my heart echoing in the silence that enveloped us. The figure blocking our path was like a dark storm cloud, a vortex of dread and uncertainty that threatened to swallow us whole. "Your only exit is through me, kids," the man growled, a sneer curling his lips. "But I'd recommend staying put. You really don't want to get on my bad side." Fear pricked at my consciousness, and 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. But before I could speak, Maria squeezed my hand, her grip a silent anchor amidst the rising tide of panic. "Think," she whispered, her eyes darting toward the kitchen door behind the counter. It was a split-second decision that transformed our fear into action. Together, we took a collective breath and bolted toward the back of the diner, weaving through tables and startled patrons as the scent of burgers and fries invaded our senses. "Hey! Get back here!" shouted the man, his voice a whip crack that sent us sprinting faster. We ducked into the kitchen just before he could reach us, the sudden rush of steam from the stovetops enveloping us like a thick fog. I could barely see anything, but the bustling chaos around us, the fryers bubbling, chefs shouting orders, and the clattering of pots felt almost comforting. "Come on," Maria urged, slipping through the narrow aisle between the stainless steel counters. We darted toward a back door, our breaths ragged as urgency propelled us forward. "Where does this lead?" I gasped, fear and adrenaline mixing in my veins. "Storage room, I think," she replied, her eyes determined despite the tremor in her hands. "If we can get out of here, we can find a place to hide until he leaves." Pushing through the door, we stumbled into a dimly lit storage room, stacked high with boxes and crates. The silence felt oppressive, and the flickering light overhead created an unsettling atmosphere. There was a moment of respite as we collapsed against a stack of crates, but the tension was palpable, like a taut string threatened to snap. I started, but Maria cut me off, pressing her finger to her lips. After a heartbeat, we heard footsteps approach the kitchen door, heavy and deliberate. I could almost see the shadows moving, a predator on the hunt. My heart sunk. "Maria," I whispered, "what if he finds us?" She turned to me, her expression darkening. "We can't think like that. We have to stay strong. We have to think of a plan." Her resolve stirred something within me. "You're right. Maybe we can find a way to the roof. If we can get up there, we can escape the diner without being seen." "Good idea," she nodded, though doubt clouded her eyes. "But it could lead us right to him." As we scanned the room for an exit, an unexpected kindness came in the form of an old janitor's closet. Its door hung slightly ajar, forgotten in the chaos of the diner. With quick hands, we shoved the door open, revealing a narrow space filled with brooms and cleaning supplies. "Over here," I urged, pulling Maria inside just as we heard the kitchen door swing open with a clang. "Where are they?" The man's voice lealed the air, sharp and demanding. We held our breath, huddled together in the cramped closet, hearts racing like a thunderstorm brewing on the horizon. The shadows crept closer, feeling almost alive with dread. Moments felt like hours, and just as I thought the man had left, I could hear footsteps echoing away, only to be interrupted by the sound of deep, angry voices spilling into the diner. "Are you sure they came this way?" a new voice asked, menacing and unfamiliar. "Look for them. Don't let them get away." The man replied, his frustration thick in the air. "I want them found." Panic clawed at me, and the space felt as if it were closing in, the weight of their search brushing against my skin. But then, through the madness that enveloped us, a gentle knock echoed from the back door, muffled and uncertain. Maria and I exchanged frantic glances. "What was that?" I whispered. She shook her head, her eyes wide, mistrustful. "Let's wait a second." But the knock came again, this time louder, and as if the world conspired to tug us from our hiding place, the door slowly creaked open, revealing the silhouette of an unexpected figure, a woman with wild, tangled hair, her expression one of shock and determination. "Are you both okay?" she breathed, her voice a low whisper. "Who are you?" Maria asked, bewildered. "I'm here to help you," she said urgently. "You need to come with me. They're looking for you." My heart raced between fear and hope. Could we trust her? I wanted to believe. But the uncertainty loomed heavy, fragile like the sunrise before storms. "How do we know you're not one of them?" "I know who that man is," she replied, her voice fierce, eyes glimmering. "And I can get you out. But you have to trust me." For a flickering moment, hope surged through me. But just as I nodded, ready to take that leap into the unknown, a loud crash from the kitchen echoed through the air, shaking the space around us. The man's voice rose above, furious and hunted. "Where are they?" The revelation blasted through me, mingling with the panic as the decision hung by a thread. The truth of our situation loomed larger than ever, and whether we should place our faith in this stranger or remain hidden in the shadows became the only burning question. Fear, uncertainty, and vulnerability gripped me tightly, threatening to unravel everything. The path ahead was dark and perilous, but I knew we had to choose. And in that agonizing moment, the ringing of my cell phone vibrated against my thigh, an unexpected harbinger of fate. A name flashed on the screen, one that brought a different kind of terror. Alberto. The air in the janitor's closet grew heavy with unspoken tension, the crashing sound from the kitchen echoing like a thunderclap in my ears. Maria and I exchanged wild looks, the stranger's fierce gaze boring into us. Trust was a gamble that seemed increasingly perilous, and as my phone vibrated once more, that sense of urgency pulsed in my veins. Alberto? Maria's whisper was barely audible, but the recognition in her eyes mirrored my own disbelief. It was as if he were the last link in a chain that had somehow set everything in motion, the fear, the danger that loomed around us. I held my breath, contemplating the implications. Could he be tied to this nightmare? Go. The woman hissed, her eyes wide with impatience as the crash of pots rang through the room. There was no more time for debate. Fine, I said, my voice trembling. But if it's a trap, I swear, it's not. Just follow me. She beckoned quickly, and with a hesitant nod from Maria, we slipped past her into the dimly lit hall. As we stepped out of the closet, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on us, even with the chaos behind. The diner's familiar sense of grease and warmth felt bizarrely comforting amid the panic that swirled inside me. Each step we took toward the back door deepened the weight of uncertainty gnawing at my stomach. We reached the door, and the woman paused, glancing back at us, her expression fierce. We're going to make a run for it. Stay close, and don't look back. Breathing in deeply, I nodded. Okay. The moment we burst through the door, the cool night air hit us like a splash of cold water, striking a balance between exhilaration and dread. I had imagined escaping from the diner in countless scenarios, but none could match the raw intensity of this moment. You need to move. My mind screamed as we dashed toward the alley, the shadows stretching long and uninviting. Every corner held the potential of discovery, every footstep felt like a countdown ticking against us. We darted around the edge of the building, moving swiftly but quietly, the faint sound of distant voices chasing us like wolves on a hunt. Which way now? I panted. The adrenaline surged through me, causing my heart to race with an odd blend of fear and adrenaline. Just ahead, the woman urged, her eyes scanning down the road. There should be a car waiting. It's safe. A car. Hope flickered faintly within me, tearing through my spiraling trepidation. And where is it taking us? To someone who can help. She led us down a narrow path under a flickering streetlight, but the uncertainty of her words clung to me like the shadows creeping up the walls. I couldn't help but feel that even in the so-called safety of her guidance, there may be depths I couldn't fathom. As we rounded the corner, my heart sank. The night was an open expanse, the road ahead barren and still, the only sounds were the distant murmur of the diner and the pounding of my own blood in my ears. Where's the car? Just wait, she said, her voice becoming more frantic as she glanced back toward the diner. It should be here any second. With dread creeping in, I could feel the shadows closing again. Suddenly, from the corner of my eye, I caught sight of headlights piercing through the darkness, but a scream punched from my throat as I saw who was behind the wheel, the one person I didn't want to see. Alberto, get in. He shouted, urgency in his voice as the headlights glared toward us, illuminating our only means of escape. Are you insane? I spat, anger boiling over the rush of fear. You can't be serious, trust me. I'm here to help. He urged, his demeanor frantic and desperate, but I couldn't afford that kind of vulnerability again. With Maria's calm hand on my arm, she whispered, we have to decide now. In that moment, I felt a shift, one that quaked under the weight of unasked questions and unresolved fears. Do I trust again? Does this kind of help come with strings? Before I could respond, the back door of the diner burst open, and the man we had tried to escape from appeared, flanked by two others. Shadows of danger laden with anger glinted in their eyes. There. This way. The man shouted, directing his companions with an unmistakable heat. Run! Maria yelled, and without thinking, I surged toward Alberto, dragging Maria along with me as we scrambled into the car, slamming the door just as a blast of furious shouts echoed behind us. I looked at Alberto, breathless and filled with a mixture of gratitude and distrust. Drive. The woman barked at him, but her eyes betrayed a simmering fear, and as the wheels screeched against the pavement, I realized, even as we fled into the night, we might have just stepped into a greater storm. As we sped away from the diner and the chaos, my phone buzzed again in my pocket. The number flashing on the screen was unfamiliar, but the fear that gripped me said otherwise. I couldn't shake the feeling that the danger wasn't something we could simply outrun. "Who is it?" Maria whispered, looking at me with wide eyes that I shook my head, too anxious to answer. When I finally retrieved the phone, but even as I glanced at the screen, a chilling realization dawned over me. It was the number of my father's old associate, the one who could lead to the unraveling of our tightly held family secrets, and with it came the overwhelming truth. We were not just running from danger. We were also sprinting directly toward a revelation that could change everything. The car hurtled down the dimly lit streets, weaving through the unease that wrapped around us like a shroud. My heart raced, hammering in tandem with the engine's roar, while the sharp scent of burnt rubber flooded my senses. Each turn seemed to take us deeper into the labyrinth of this chaos, obscuring the path to safety I longed for. Maria was beside me, her fingers gripping the edge of her seat, her knuckles white against the worn leather. I could see her trembling, and the fear mirrored in her eyes only amplified my own. "What do we do now?" she whispered, her voice tinged with disbelief. I felt the weight of the world pressing down on me. There was a tempest thrumming in my chest, a cacophony of thoughts clamoring for attention. Trust was an elusive specter, haunting the corners of my mind, yet I couldn't neglect the pulse of hope that flickered within, a spark ignited by the prospect of answers we so desperately needed. "The call," I finally said, the words tumbling out of my mouth in a mix of urgency and fear. "I have to answer it." Before I could overthink, my fingers flew across the screen, accepting the call as I pressed it to my ear. The uneasy silence on the other end was unmistakable, charged with a tension I could almost taste. "Hello?" I ventured, my voice edged with trepidation. "Is this you, Sophia?" The voice was gravelly, unmistakably familiar, yet layered with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. "You need to listen closely. Who is this?" I stammered, my heart clenching. The voice belonged to Vicente, my father's associate, and I instinctively felt the weight of our shared history, lingering shadows that stung with realization. "Time is short. You're in more danger than you realize. Meet me at the old warehouse by the docks. I'll explain everything," he urged, the conversation laced with urgency. "You have to trust me. This is about your father." The line went dead before I could respond, panic surging through me like a tidal wave. I glanced at Alberto, the man I had so hesitantly relied upon. "We need to go to the docks. Vicente is there. He says he knows what's happening." Alberto's brow furrowed, a mixture of concern and disbelief flashing through his gaze. "Sophia, I'm not sure. Do you want to stay here and let them find us? If he knows something about my father, we have to go." I surprised myself with the conviction in my voice. The shadows felt closer now, clutching at my resolve. Suddenly, Mariah's voice cut into the tension, a lifeline amid the storm threatening to engulf us. "Let's go. I don't want to waste another second here," she said, her determination shining bright against the encroaching darkness. We turned onto a deserted road leading to the docks. The vastness of the shadows gave me pause, but the weight of impending revelations overshadowed my fears. We parked in the lot, the ominous warehouse looming in the distance. As we approached, the moon cast long shadows that danced mockingly beneath our feet. My pulse quickened. Whatever lay ahead threatened to unravel everything I thought I knew about my father and about myself. When we reached the door, it creaked open, revealing a barren space filled with the scent of wood and salt. Vicente stood near a flickering light, his features etched with years of unspoken trials. He gestured for us to come closer, the shadows of the warehouse swallowing any warmth the moonlight had offered. "You have to understand," Vicente began, his voice grave. "There are forces at play that you cannot fathom. Your father was more than just a businessman, he was entangled in a web far darker than even he understood." Each sentence he uttered pulled me further away from the semblance of safety I had clung to. An unsettling anxiety twisted in my belly. "What do you mean?" I asked, the words tasting bittersweet as they left my lips. "There are people searching for something he left behind, something that could destroy everything. They've tied you into this because of him. You are not just a bystander. The moment you stepped into that diner, you became part of the game. Game? What game? Maria questioned, her voice breaking with fear, the kind that involves power, secrets, and unspeakable costs. And it's closing in on you both. Vicente's eyes bore into mine with a weight that threatened to crush me under its promise of devastation. As I stood rooted in place, a chilling realization settled in. My past had come crashing down, and the specters I thought I could outrun had found me instead. The truth clawed its way into my throat, and I shivered as the implications of trusting Vicente sank in. Just then, shattering the moment, a loud crash echoed from the entry. The clamor of heavy boots approached, and in that second, I knew we were not alone. "We need to go now," Alberto shouted, teeth clenched, as a figure emerged from the shadows, cloaked in menace. As chaos erupted around us, the impending doom wrapped tighter, and all I could do was chase the remnants of hope within me. Even as the darkness rushed in, the warehouse doors trembled as bodies thudded against it, and the claustrophobic dread spilled over. It was not just fear I felt, it was the sharp sting of betrayal mingling with the terror, threatening to rip apart the fragile bond we had formed under such dire circumstances. In that heartbeat of uncertainty, I realized I was standing on the edge of a precipice. If I didn't act, if we didn't fight back, everything I loved, everything I sought to protect, could slip away forever. Gripped by fear, we hesitated, the looming shadows swirling with despair. The heavy thud of boots against the floor ignited the urgency in my veins. "We can't just wait for them to break in," I gasped, adrenaline quickening my heartbeat. Vicente's eyes darted toward the door, calculating, strategizing. "There's a back exit through the supply room. We need to move, now." He grabbed my arm, urgency anchoring his grip. "Go!" We propelled ourselves towards the back of the warehouse, the clamor of chaos pounding in our ears like a drumbeat of impending fate. "Together!" Maria shouted, squeezing my hand, her presence a balm against the rising tide of dread. As we burst through the door, the night embraced us with a cool breath, yet the freedom felt suffused with apprehension. The parking lot lay before us, empty save for our car, but a sense of relief waned as we heard the voices behind us. "Stop them!" one of the figures bellowed, angrily slamming their fist against the door. "We have to go!" Alberto shouted, spiraling around the car to fumble with the keys as we hopped inside. Maria and I slammed the doors, breathless with a wild mixture of exhilaration and terror. "Drive!" I shouted, urgency threading my voice as more footsteps surged toward us. We needed to get away. A storm was brewing behind us, but I felt a fierce resilience rising within me. Alberto turned the key, and the engine roared to life, its guttural growl punctuating the fading echoes of danger. As we sped out of the lot, I glanced back once more. In that fleeting moment, shadows silhouetted against the warehouse, anger and desperation written in their postures, but we were free, at least for now. But the night's reprieve didn't last long as Vicente's words returned, wrapping themselves around my mind like an unwelcome shroud. "You are not just a bystander. The moment you stepped into that diner, you became part of the game." "What game?" I thought, wrestling to comprehend. As we drove towards an uncertain future, the headlights illuminated the vast nothingness enveloping us. "Where do we go?" I asked, searching for direction amidst the haze of chaos. Vicente leaned forward from the back seat, his expression tense but determined. "We need to lie low for a bit until the initial chaos settles. I have a friend who can help. Just trust me." Trust. The word felt like a double-edged sword. A part of me wanted to believe, but the shards of betrayal lingered just beneath the surface. With each mile we put between us and the din of danger, I could sense the distance growing. But could I outrun the whispers of our past? We accelerated into the darkness of the night, the storm behind us a distant echo. Yet in the stillness, beneath the tumult of fear, I sensed the stirrings of something I hadn't counted on, a fierce hope that clung even in the darkest corners of uncertainty. As we approached a winding road, the uncertainty crept back, heavier than the fading cries chasing us. What if they find us? I could scarcely articulate the shadows encasing those thoughts. Who? Maria's voice cut through, a lifeline amid the swirling chaos. The people chasing us, or those who've taken an interest in our truths, both. I exclaimed, feeling the weight of our uncertain future press down. This isn't over, is it? I wish I could tell you, Vicente replied softly, but the truth? It's a double-edged sword. If you're caught between lies and truths, one will always threaten to cut deeper. I felt the weight of those words settling into my understanding, and almost involuntarily, I found myself clenching my fists. I refuse to let this happen to us. I refuse to be the victim. Alberto looked back at me, surprise flickering in his gaze, as if he were seeing me for the first time. Sophia, it's more complicated than that. No. My voice hardened, a surge of newfound strength pulsing through me, the storm of emotions weaving into clarity. This is about more than just the fear of being pursued. This is about reclaiming our stories, our lives. Whatever we have to face, we will face together. Our eyes met, and Marie's gaze mirrored my determination. Together we formed a bond forged by burden, struggle, and the unyielding clarity that emerged amid shadows. Then, slowly, a shift began to swell in the car. The oppressive weight of doubt began to lighten, as if the fear that had once wrapped around us tightly had loosened its grip, if only for a moment. That we navigated through the twists and turns of the road, seeking the sanctuary Vicente spoke of, but even as we did, a realization began to settle in. We had crafted our lives from the threads of pain, and now we were carving paths from hope. The darkness behind us felt less daunting, even as it resonated with ghosts of fear and uncertainty, the past filtering through like a shadow but not an unbearable weight. Where to now? Alberto asked, his voice steadying, eyes focused ahead. Let's just keep driving. We'll find a way to protect each other, I replied, the determination wrapping around my heart. No more running, and with that, I caught sight of the horizon beginning to break, a haunting beauty spilling across the sky in muted hues of dawn. A sense of calm washed over me as if the world had exhaled, leaving the lingering shadows behind. Soon, I wouldn't just be running from my fears, I would rise and step into the light, embracing the inevitable challenges that lay ahead, because in the end, we were still here, together, and even as uncertainty loomed, our stories would intertwine as we forged a path anew. With one final glance at Maria and Alberto, I knew we were no longer mere players in their game, but architects of our fates. And as we ventured forth into the awakening day, I understood that the ultimate truth we chased wasn't hidden in the shadows, but illuminated within our hearts. Together, I whispered to them, voice laced with a fierce determination. Together, Maria echoed, and as we pressed on, the horizon brightening ahead, I felt hope drenching us in its unwavering embrace. In that luminous moment, we transformed from fleeing shadows into radiant beacons, unbreakable, unyielding, rising together from the depths. And just like that, I promised myself, the darkness would whisper in the past while we shined in the brilliance of our light. Because it was there, at the heart of the dawn, that I realized the one item I had always sought was not merely safety or freedom, it was the resilience born from love, connection, and acceptance, surging forward into the majestic unknown. And with that understanding blossoming within me, I finally began to breathe, ready to face whatever awaited us, now and always.